Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I will be wrapping up another 6 books I've read recently. It's been a while since I've done a wrap-up and that's because I have also been reading for the BookTube prize, so that takes up quite a chunk of my reading time, but I've read another 6 books and I'm going to talk to you about them. And the first book I want to talk about today is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrun. I read this right at the beginning of January. This is a romance novel, which is a bit of a departure for me. The basic premise of the book is that it revolves around 2 men, Dave and Charlie. Dave is one of the producers on a reality dating show called Ever After. This is a sort of the Bachelor type of show where one eligible bachelor will choose his female love interest throughout a process of elimination. And Dev is one of the most successful producers of the show, always creating a perfect love story, even though he personally just broke up with his boyfriend of 6 years, and his own love life isn't as perfect as it is portrayed in the show. And then Charlie is this year's Prince Charming. He's a tech wonderkind who has just been fired from his own company, and he wants to use the show to boost his own image. And it turns out that Charlie is very awkward around the women in the show, and Dev helps him open up a bit more, and then it turns out there's a lot more chemistry between them rather than between Charlie and the women, and things move from there. So that's the basic setup of the novel, and like I said, I don't really read romance novels, so I have no idea how it compares to other books in the genre. Don't ask me what tropes are being used in this, but I guess you don't come here for that anyway. I don't know how it rates in levels of spiciness, or like how fast this relationship is developing. All I know is I had quite a good time with this. I listened to this book on audio, which worked really well for me. I thought it was very well narrated. I liked how the romance developed. I thought it was quite cute and heartwarming and sexy. I think the book went a lot deeper than I thought it would go. Both characters struggle with mental health issues as well, and I thought that was very well done. I appreciated that it had different kinds of queer characters in it, including an asexual character and what asexuality looked like for them. I liked the commentary the book had on social media and reality TV. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. I just had a good time with this book. Next I read Sneeuw, Voet by Claudio Morandini. This is translated from the Italian to the Dutch by Hilda Scha and Manon Smits. There's also an English translation of this book that is called Snow Dog Voet. And I picked this up because of Karen of the Roving Readers recommendation after I heard her talk about it. It's a short book, only 120 pages or so, and it's about this old man living a very reclusive life up on the mountains. And in the opening of the book he goes down the mountain to the nearest village to get his provisions for the winter. He's already very grumpy doing that because it means he will have to interact with other people, which he hates. But he gets to the shop and the proprietor of the shop is like, "What are you doing here? You've already got all your things a few days ago." So he's sort of confused and angrily stomps off again up the mountains. And indeed, when he opens his shed, he sees that it is already filled with provisions. And I was immediately intrigued by that because it sets this man up as a really unreliable narrator, and it makes you wonder what will happen next. So the story continues, the winter sets in properly, a dog comes to live with him, and he will have regular conversations with this dog. And then at the end of the winter, when the snow starts melting again, they discover a human foot sticking out of the snow. And the rest of the book is basically them, and by them I mean the man and the dog, trying to figure out who this foot belongs to and what happened to them. And this is not so much a detective story as more an exploration of an unraveling mind. We already know that this man's memory isn't quite reliable anymore, and you're never quite sure if the things he sees are actually happening or if he's just imagining them. And I thought it was just really fascinating to be in this man's mind, and to see the world how he sees it, because at some level he himself is also aware that his memory is failing him, and he's trying to make sense of everything, but we as readers can't really trust anything. I really enjoyed the description of the mountains and the cabin he lives in, and just the solitary life this man is living. Just really thought-provoking, and I would recommend it. Then I read the highly acclaimed memoir Crying in Mart by Michelle Zauner. This book centers around the death of her mother, who died of cancer when the author was, I believe, in her mid-20s. She writes about her relationship with her mother, which at some points was really quite difficult. About finding out her mother has cancer and her illness, and taking care of her mother, and then ultimately about her death and what the grieving process has been like. A lot of her memories of her mother were to do with food, and it was a point on which they really connected, so throughout the book food and cooking really plays a big role. Now, it's always difficult to review a memoir, but especially one that deals with death and grief, because, who am I to have any opinions on that? But whilst I was reading it, I kept on thinking, I don't know why this is so popular. I don't see what's making this book so special. I felt like I was really missing something, until I realized that is exactly what is the strength of this book. It is just about someone writing about their experience of their mother dying and what that was like for them. No embellishments, no profound revelations, and the fact that there is nothing special about it is what made it so strong in the end. I kept on thinking throughout this book, someone right now in the world is going through this exact moment. Someone is going to a hospital appointment, dreading bad news. Someone is trying to figure out what food to prepare for their parent who is suffering from side effects of chemotherapy. Someone is having to decide whether their parent is well enough so they can go away for a couple of days. Someone is having to pick out a funeral outfit. And of course, everyone's experience of grief is unique, but I think the strength of this book lies in this universality of it. Yeah, it really moved me a lot. I also read Was by Jilt Jorritsma, which is a Dutch book that I don't think has been translated. The title, Was, can be translated in three ways. One is the past tense of is, like it is in English. It could be washing or laundry, or it could be wax. I'll leave in the middle which of these three is the most fitting. So in the beginning of the book we meet our protagonist, Weird. He has just lost his mother. His relationship with his girlfriend is going through some struggles. So he decides to find out more about his father, who has been absent throughout most of his life. He only has a few photos from his childhood, and he decides to visit one of the remote farms that was in one of these photos. And I was like, great, here is another example of why I don't like Dutch literature, where some white dude goes on a navel-gazing journey of self-discovery with way too much mention of bodily fluids and disgusting bits. But then this book went into a direction I didn't expect it to go. It got really weird, and then it got even weirder. Like, there wasn't a moment in this book where I enjoyed myself, but it is one of those experiences where you're thinking, I want to look away, I want to stop, but you just have to keep on going and you can't tear your eyes off the page. So yeah, if you like revolting, gross, weird books, then this is for you. Next, I want to talk about Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick by Zora Neale Hurston. This is a collection of short stories which were all published individually before in the 1920s and 1930s, but here they are all collected in one volume. Now, obviously this is a collection that wasn't written as a collection, so obviously there was some stories that I liked more than others, but also then some stories almost felt a bit too similar to each other. But I love that even though they were written sometimes decades apart, they still had this commonality, and I think that's usually because of the fact that she sets the majority of her stories in the town of Eatonville, which is the town the author grew up in, and it is well known for being one of the first self-governed all-black communities, and obviously this is a fictionalized version of that town, but I love that through all these stories we got to know this town and the people who lived in it. She definitely has some really interesting and memorable characters who keep on popping up in different stories, and reading about them was almost like hearing the latest gossip. And I think Zora, side tangent, the editor of this book, says that Zora is one of the few authors that are known by their first name. I think she's very good at depicting this regular daily life. I really love her writing style. She is known for using a lot of colloquial language, which to me really adds another layer in this book. And I think for that the audiobook is a very good choice if you want to read this book or try and read it out loud. And I think that all these stories just run the gamut of the human experience. It's sad and dark at times, but also funny and hopeful. Yeah, I think she's a really amazing author, and I think this collection is well worth your time. Though I wouldn't recommend reading more than one story at a time. And then the last book I want to talk about today is the next book in the month series that I've been talking about before, and that is Maart or March by Saskia de Koster. I had read one book by this author before that I really liked, so I was looking forward to this one, and it didn't disappoint. This is one of the favorites in the series so far. And the author talks about how every year, without fail, in March she falls in love. And it's almost like an addiction to her. And this year she decides she's not going to do it anymore. She says it's exhausting and it brings trouble, and I don't want it anymore. And she reminisces about different times in life when she's fallen in love and how there was sometimes a good thing, sometimes not so much. Yeah, I don't have that much more to say about it. I like the author's writing style. I wonder if she drew inspiration from Bambi, when everyone gets twitterpated in the springtime, because that's what I was reminded of when reading this book. And again, I'm looking forward to seeing who the next author will be for April. Those were the books I wanted to talk about today. If you have any thoughts on anything I said today, please leave your comments down below, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye bye.